Ghost PR. I am the president of the San Francisco Press Club, and I'm on the board of the San Francisco Society of Professional Journalists.
Mr. Curtis Sparrer, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. So, what is your main motivation for writing Grow or your?
Well, I think my motivation for writing has been in hopes of explaining things.
Yes.
Sometimes those things are complicated. Sometimes they are things that are empathetic that you might want someone else to understand. And so I have started my writing career as a journalist when I was a TV producer. I'd write for other outlets. And at one particular moment in my life, I thought I should publish a book.
Certainly. So, what are your struggles in writing Game Face?
Well, probably that I have a full time job that's probably more than just one full time job. Being the principal of a PR agency is a lot of work. But I was able to trudge along, if you will, and get a book out this year and talk about the challenges that people in my profession have from the perspective of a 10-year-old girl.
Hmm. So, tell us, Mr. Curtis, Game Face is all about.
Well, let me start with its origin. When I was getting married, my niece Sloan was going to be my flower girl. And we were talking about what I did. And I thought that I should buy a book to help her understand what my job was like. And so I, found books like this one, Barbie in the Spotlight, for example,
Yeah.
or I Want to Be a Journalist, but I never found anything about PR. And that's when I thought, well, I should write one. And it became this nagging thought that didn't really go anywhere. But as my agency was reaching its 10-year anniversary, I thought I should do something for that somehow hits the number 10 in some way, shape, or form. And that's when it hit me that I should write a book for 10-year-olds about PR.
Interesting indeed. So, how many months or years did you create this Game Face?
Well, that's the beauty of children's books. It took me about a year. And part of it is that I could take real life stories and adapt them to what I was doing. It opens up, for example, with a video game having a glitch or a problem. And I have worked with famous video game companies. I know what a crisis communications call is like. And so it was easy for me to create that moment. In fact, a lot of the book is based on real life moments or people who I've worked with. I thought early on, do I create a fictional PR universe? Do I create the PR version of Narnia? Or do I create something that I can know about authentically and talk about what that's like? And I opted for that.
So, what message or lesson do you hope readers take away from this book?
I think people should take away from this book that a bug sometimes is not a bug, sometimes it's a feature.
Yes.
That it's important to listen to people no matter where they come from, whether they are a 10-year-old girl or someone who is in, I don't know, the 10th decade of their life. That people have a truth that you need to find, and you need to be curious in order to do that.
So, Mr. Cortez, let's talk about the characters and storyline. Who is your favorite character in the book and why?
Well, the fun thing is I wrote it about my agency, so I guess my favorite character would probably be myself.
Yes, for
But
sure.
and it's a little meta to read it out loud. We just had a book launch party yesterday, and so I was doing a reading of it, and I had to said, Curtis said this and Curtis said that. And I thought, that's me. Naturally,
That's
though, from
you.
a reader's point of view, I like Sloan because Sloan is the person that navigates this whole universe of a hidden career that most people don't think about and discovers it with fresh eyes and explains it to the reader in a way that makes sense. And so naturally, that's where my alliances lie.
Interesting indeed, Mr. Curtis. So, did you base any of the characters on real people you work with in PR?
Absolutely. I find that when you're telling a story, you are always telling it in a version of a rough draft. And then you retell it and you retell it, and the story gets tighter and tauter. And sometimes a character or two will disappear because it's just easier to tell it that way. And so I definitely based it on people I work with because that was easier for me. And at times, sometimes I'd combine people or multiple people because it just made the story that much more compelling and that much easier and more fun for the reader.
So, was there a particular scene that was especially fun or difficult to write?
I think the scene that resonated with me most deeply is when our characters are having to tell their client about a massive glitch to a video game that's going on worldwide. And it's a tense call. It's a crisis communications call. And I've been there. And that's when people's livelihoods are on the line and no one is having a good time and no one has a sense of humor. These are tense calls. And watching the characters maneuver through these moments that are pretty fraught and get through on the other side and make their case, I felt that was so true to life that I still get goosebumps when I read it. And so part of what I wanted to do in this book is I wanted to create moments of drama that were dramatic, but weren't necessarily over the top. A tense client call is definitely dramatic, but it's not like a car chase or blowing up the Death Star, something that probably none of us will ever have happen. But this is something that can likely happen in a career like this. And if it's not PR, it could be in any creative campaign where your client is not happy or you're having to explain something difficult. And that's probably my biggest, most resonant moment.
So, Mr. Curtis, are there hidden messages or Easter eggs in the book that readers might miss on a first read?
You know, I didn't pull any punches with any Easter eggs. I feel bad. Now that you brought that up, I'm thinking that's what I should have done. Darn it. And maybe this is because I'm a first time writer. And I think that writers who really, you know, finesse their craft take a real pleasure in doing that because they can and because they've done it so often. So the next time I go about this, definitely there's some Easter eggs to come. But for right now, what you see is what you get.
Looking forward for that, Mr. Curtis. So let's talk about the writing process. What is your biggest challenge while writing the book itself?
I think finding the time to do it. I have a busy family life. I have a busy work life. And I would find that I could write portions and then I'd work with my colleagues to help me flesh things out because or I would, swap ideas with them and see how things sounded. And so that was the hardest part is finding the amount of space to do it. I think anyone can write a book. It's just a matter of gathering the time and the necessary focus to do it.
Certainly. And the publishing itself plus the marketing is the hard one.
Well, sure, marketing is can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Good. Marketing is always hard. And I think that, this book came out during a time where American politics is at such a point that it's hard to get cut through when people are focused on a rather important story. And so I'm taking a very long lead approach to this. I am writing a book for a group of people who have never had this kind of book before. There are hundreds of people who work in communications, but there is not a children's book that puts a child at the center of the action like this. And several times when I would talk to any sort of marketer or communicator about this book and my ambitions, they say, you know what? I need that for my kid, or I need that for my boss, or I need that for my CEO. And so I believe as people look for a way to describe what communications is, this will be more and more in vogue. In fact, not only have all the major PR trades written about this book, but also we have gotten or secured is a nicer way of saying it, the big public relations organizations. And so I think if I was to make any recommendations, Daniel, to people who are looking to write a book, I would think about doing something that's really niche, where there are a couple different organizations and who would passionately care about this, but have yet been underserved. Because I think that's the real value of writing sometimes is bringing light to communities who have yet to have it.
So, Mr. Curtis, did you do any special research while writing the book?
I did my research. I looked at a variety of children's books. I saw how they were written. I looked at how the main characters talk to each other. I looked at what would appeal to someone at that age range. I also looked at other books and saw, how they were doing the illustrations and how they were doing the plot points because I wanted to make sure that I could do something like that was familiar enough where it was in that voice. Now, the good news is that my previous career was that of a TV producer where I was paid to write at a fifth grade level of education. And so that kind of simplified writing was already inherent in my DNA.
Each part of your DNA. Awesome. So, what was your writing routine like while working on this project?
Every day, I would give it some focus. I would start in the morning until I could no longer focus on it, and so that didn't last for long. I found the evening to be a better time for story development and writing, and then I would email drafts to various people in my company or friends, and I'd say, "What do you think? Does this work or does that work?" And we would get together and I would make changes and, just ad infinitum. In fact, if I would say anything about the process, it's, you know, the more hands, the better, because your friends and your friends of friends are going to see things that you never thought of.
So, Mr. Curtis, what will be your advice for those people out there who want to write their own book?
I'm not breaking any news here when I say stick to what you know and just make what you do interesting to other people. I think every job is fascinating. I just think you need to find the way to make it fascinating to others. Granted, there are several parts of my profession that are super boring, but that didn't really make the book because it would have been super boring. Similarly, anyone, for example, at even a fast food restaurant has a story to tell that should be told. And so I would say that focus on that and look for the bright spots that are interesting. And that's going to be the basis of your story.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. Curtis. So, what will be your short term and long term goals in writing?
I think my short term goal is just to get the word out about Game Face. And I think the long term goal is to think about what I will write next and how I'll approach it.
Hmm, yes. Good luck to your goals, Mr. Curtis. So, let's talk about the reader impact and reception. How has the response from readers been so far?
So far, it's been very good. I've had several people say that it was a very fun, very cute read, that it explained PR well, and that they really liked the characters. I think the biggest negatives I received have been from people who were the inspiration behind characters who may have said that their illustrations made them look too fat, too bald, or not cute enough. And so I apologize for that. I think well, that might be, glib and cute. I think there is a real sense of Kierkegaardian fear and trembling with any sort of writing, because in this kind of world where everything seems instant and forgettable, books take on a sense of permanence. And the idea that you are going to be immortalized in a book has some people really anxious about how they come across. And so that was one of the hardest things I had to reconcile myself with is some people would say, I don't like how I look or I don't like how I feel. And this is a huge deal for me that you're not taking seriously.
Yes, certainly. So, what age group or type of readers do you think will most enjoy Game Face?
I think 10-year-olds are going to like it, but I have found that people who are as old as 60 or as young as 8 have enjoyed the book too.
Certainly. And are you planning a sequel or a spin-off to Game
You know,
Face?
there's been a lot of talk already about what that could be. And I have looked at a variety of fields that are quote unquote hidden, that what we're calling the hidden professions. And so I think if there is going to be a direct sequel to Game Face, it will be about one of the hidden professions that doesn't get enough press.
Nice. Awesome. So, Mr. Curtis, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Music 101, in its third season, people, third season with Mr. Jim Smith. Please do listen to our latest episode. We are talking about the covers of the Beatles itself. So please do listen Music 101 wherever you listen to your podcast. So, Mr. Curtis, have any PR professionals or detectives reach out to share their thoughts on your book?
Yes, I've already received a couple different people saying how I captured the moment, how this was a way that they thought a crisis communication instance should be had. One person said I nailed it, uh, and another person said that they liked that we focused on the content writing and the messaging. I think a lot of times people think that PR is what they see in entertainment, like Sex in the City and Samantha Jones, who just seems to throw parties. But PR is more than that. PR is about listening to a person or a company about what they want to say and helping them achieve that. Because oftentimes their desires or goals require complex work that most people don't think about in order to be arrive at a point where other people will talk about it. And so I think about that constantly in this book and how I could do a better job for the next.
Mr. Curtis Sparrer, thank you so much for sharing Game Face to the world, and we are looking forward for more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So can you please invite our listeners to support Game Face?
It's available on Amazon Books. Just go there.
Yes, people, where books are sold, let's support Mr. Curtis because if you support him, as I said, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Curtis, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Bodycon people, see you soon.